2014 was when the Office of Special Investigations was investigating Chip because I had stolen
That's
a 30 millimeter barrel and a table out of the O Club.
That's correct. That was great.
I returned both of those things for the record.
All right, everybody. Welcome. We have got Bro Chat, episode 1.1, version 2, whatever you want to call it. I'm Flash McVay, sitting in for Rain Waters on the Afterburn podcast, hosting our first Bro Chat. Got Rain, Vader, and Bender with about 16 episodes of the Bro Chat. Me and Rain kind of talked about it, and we wanted to get a second Bro Chat going. We're also in a little bit of an A-10 themed period of time. So I got my Hawg bros. I'm excited. The thing that we had here is we want to get this Bro Chat going. I just go, who do I want to chat? And these are the guys that came up with. So we got Kelso Flick, we got Satan Levy, we got Duffle Lusardi, all heroes in the Hawg, and guys I really look up to. We were talking for the last couple of weeks about getting this started, and I can tell you that there is no less than probably 6 million text messages between us and another individual who might join us at another one after he sees this first episode. But yeah, let's just go kind of a little bit around the room. Just introduce yourself, talk about your Hawg experience in about 30 to 45 seconds or less, and then we'll kind of get started just with the overall Bro Chat. So Kelso, over to you, man.
All right. Current and qualified in the Hawg, and I've got 3 A-10 tours under my belt. I did 3 years out in Korea, did 3.5 years at Davis-Monthan, and then I did 2.5 years at Nellis Air Force Base. 2 deployments, one to Inherent Resolve and one to Freedom Sentinel. And that's pretty much it. Weapons officer background, weapons officer instructor, and happy to be here.
There we go. Satan, my guy, what's up?
Yo, how we doing? Satan Levy, B course graduate in 2010. If you hear my dogs barking, I apologize. I'll try to close that window here in a minute, but it's springtime over here in Europe, so gotta open the windows while you can, right? Yeah, graduated 2010. Had ops tour at Davis-Monthan. 3 years deployed out of that. Went to Moody. Did not deploy out of my Moody tour, but did a bunch of flying, lots of TDYs, and then went back to Davis-Monthan in 2015 as a B course instructor, first on active duty, and then in the reserves for about 5 years, and then left the Hawg last year for, I won't say greener pastures, but different opportunities for success, let's just say. But had a great time flying for 13 years or so in the Hawg.
Oh, yeah. Duffle.
Oh, you said it twice. That's perfect. Duffle Lusardi. I've been with Kelso in like half my assignments. So a couple times in Korea. In between was Moody, and then I taught at Nellis with Kelso there. So teaching to Wick, and then did my AFCENT tour, the great one that we all love. The 6 months down in the Karaoke as the A3TW, where I thought I was going to fly with the A-10s in Afghanistan. Instead, they left, and it was COVID, so I couldn't leave the Karaoke there. So it was fun, but I didn't get to fly. But yeah, pretty much the same as Kelso, just always disappointing him as his wingman as much as I can.
Not always.
Half the time.
Yeah,
about half.
We're going to talk about that later. The apparently ever unreliable Duffle just disappoints Kelso at all times, and then again Kelso just relearning that lesson learned about 100 times over. Apparently, you have a trusting face. But yeah, no, I've the good thing about these guys, I've been stationed at some point with all these guys or interacted with them. Moody, either Moody from Shaw. At Moody, Korea, and then at Nellis. Me and Satan actually, I ripped Satan's squadron out in Afghanistan when you were with the Bulldogs. With an unfortunate, we won't even get there. But yeah. So worked with these guys a lot. I flew Hogs back in the day, washed up Hawg pilot myself, and then as we kind of go forward, Duffle over here is coming over to the 5th gen side en route. So, Kelso.
Tomorrow or Tuesday, I'll be driving.
Yeah, on Tuesday. Kelso's the last holdout, man. We're gonna kind of get into that. So, guys, thanks for joining. We're gonna be here for about the next 85 minutes. It's gonna be a blast. So we're kind of here talking about the Hawg. Apparently, it's going away again. 10th time at least for the whole thing. Rumor WOMs out there. Everybody's seen that the demonstration team is going away. This is their last season. Possible end of B course, spring of 25, summer of 25 might be an actual thing. But we've kind of seen this before. So when we look at it, myself and Rain, we talked to Hal Sunt, who wrote the book Warplane, just kind of chronicling the history of the Hawg and all the times that it's kind of gone away. But just the culture inside of the Hawg community is one that is unique and really, really cool to have been a part of and to be a part of. And we just wanted to kind of sit around and chat about that and kind of reminisce on some things, because at this current time, none of us are currently like sitting in an A-10 almost every day. But we love it. We cherish it. We cherish our time and things like that. So just overall kind of the culture, like getting it started is like the way it's been to me going from the Hawg to the F-16 to the F-35 is the approach to the mission sets that you fly. I have taken that from the A-10. Kind of the emotional side of the mission is not just tracks on a screen, possible humans on the ground. And that's something that the A-10 kind of instilled in me from being a lieutenant and from B course and even through pilot training with some of my instructors. But anybody, Kelso, let's go ahead and start with you, man. What do you feel like is the best part about the culture of the A-10?
The best part about the culture, I would say it is that you have a group of high-performing people that are all passionate about the same thing, and we do a really good job of indoctrinating folks. Like, we all went through the B course. Everybody on this bro chat, we all remember early on being told it's all about the 18-year-old with a rifle, right? Like from day one, you're told that is what your life is, that is who you support, and that is how you do business. And it's something that we have the unique opportunity in being a more focused platform, if you will, similar to the F-15C and the F-22, in that we can really get a ton of hours in training to supporting the 18-year-old on the ground with a rifle. And even the combat search and rescue piece of it is just an awesome mission, because you look at, it's not about going out and blowing up targets and killing bad guys. It's about bringing home our brothers and sisters and making sure that, you know, everybody that goes out there and sticks their neck out on the line, if they end up isolated, we're going to stick our own necks out on the line to try and make sure that they can get home. And I think that's a special mission. It's something that between that being a supporting asset mentality and then also trying to get people home, those two ideas merging just creates for a really special community. And it's why, you know, 4 people that are all over the world right now are happy to get on a podcast and chat about it, right? Like, it's fun. We enjoy it. And it's unique to do something that at the end of the day, you feel fulfilled. You feel like you've made a difference. So that's what I would say is the best part. It's just the blend of those two mission sets and the culture that's been built around it.
It's I think Geronimo Johns, if you guys remember him, he said it best. He always called it a blue collar fighter. And we're a blue collar culture for sure. We just happen to be stuck in a white collar branch of the military, which leads us to some of the problems that I'm sure we'll get to discuss later here in the pod. But just like Kelso said, that supporting mentality that, hey, it's a dirty job. Someone's got to do it, and it's gonna get done when it gets done. We're not gonna try to, scoff it or anything like that. And it is a completely different mindset than I think a lot of the rest of the Air Force has when it comes to warfare in general and daily flying missions specifically. Just that brotherhood that comes with kind of a shared combat experience. I think it just being the primary job of talking to the guy on the ground and trying to empathize with the situation that they're in, but still remain calm, cool, and collected, and be the voice of reason on the radio, and have the ability and the professionalism to take care of whatever problem that person is experiencing at that particular moment is everything. I mean, that's not to say that other fighter communities don't have, moments where you're doing that. I'm sure if you played audio of an air-to-air, OCA sweep or a seed mission where everyone's defending and things are coming off the tracks, there's a lot of similarities, I think, across the board and all that stuff. But the service first mindset, the supporting mindset, and the blue collar nature of it, I think is what's best. It's like, those old Chevy truck commercials, like a rock, that's kind of us. We're the pickup truck, the old dirty beat up pickup truck of the fighter community. So that's what I love about it.
Oh yeah. Duff, what you got? No, and well, it's saying that's like the supporting asset kind of mentality. We were talking about that, like bringing that mindset into the other mission sets that the Air Force provides, like kind of going in is it humbles you, like now as a seed guy, if you will, is you just have to understand that, like the whole weasel mentality of just like, I'll go ahead and leave my right hand free so that you can shake it. It's like, no, just, you are not the mission. You are.
Dude, when I first heard the right hand thing, I was just like, come on, man. Like,
yeah,
this is not Vietnam. Like, everyone just chill out.
Yeah.
No, they already said it, but I think the biggest thing for me was that I've always seen in all the guys and girls that I know from the community is, dude, it's never, from day one, it was never about you. Like, it's cool to be a fighter pilot, but at no point in the A-10 were you ever sitting there being like, I'm the show. Like, I'm here because I'm going to do this and I'm important and I'm the mission. It's like, no. Someone else is always the mission. We are always supporting something else. And so as soon as you like internalize that, you start to see a difference in the culture where it's like, oh, okay, got it. Like, I'm here for someone else. Someone else matters more than me. And like, that is my job. And until I land, then, that is what it is. And then I think it also, having not flown in a conflict where the threat to me was ever higher than I was to myself or my wingman. Like, when you think about it, like when I think of the times I almost died, it's because me and my wingman did something stupid, or as a wingman, I did something stupid with my flight lead. Like, hey, I'm going to go below the weather when it's 3,000 foot weather deck and it's, Syria. Why would I do that? Like, no one is dying right now. It's like, well, because I'm going to go kill the target. And it's like, well, you're going to kill yourself because you're trying to get a mission done for someone else. Right. And so it's just, that's always been that mentality is. And again, like Satan's point, I am sure that mentality is elsewhere. I'm sure it is. But the fact that you brought up the right hand thing makes me think of like, well, maybe it's not as ingrained from the get-go in other communities.
I'll explain the right hand thing for the folks at home.
Oh yeah.
It's a tongue in cheek kind of thing. And it was actually born from a right different kind of, or different community, but it's like when you're at the bar, you're only holding your drink in your left hand so you can keep your right hand free to be able to shake the hand of the people that are coming up to thank you for saving their life or anything like that. And then if they catch you drinking in your right hand, they can say weasel, and then you have to chug that drink. But yeah, it's an interesting game. But Duffle, dude, it is not ingrained into other communities as it is in the Hawg. Like that mission first, service first, but you aren't the mission is just not necessarily at the forefront of other communities' minds. At least as prevalent as I have seen than it is in the Hawg. When people are sitting around and they are talking about the mission, and when I say the mission, like the mission set, and then also when everybody understands that the mission is actually that 18-year-old with a rifle, then that is something that is not normally found in other communities. But yeah, so it's out there. But it's not as prevalent as you would think.
You know who I think is the closest After working with the Jacksonville F-15Cs at a red flag, I felt like the F-15C community was really as close as I've seen to that A-10 culture where like they did not care about how many airplanes they shot down. They did not care about how great they did. It was all about whether other forces that they were supporting survived. And that was the closest I had seen to that same mindset. The same way that we feel about the ground troops, the F-15C guys seem to feel that way about all of the other aircraft that were in the package. And I think there's a little bit of the specialization behind it of like, that is what they do. They take pride in making sure that U.S. and coalition aircraft don't get shot by any other enemy aircraft. And they take a lot of pride in it, and they're pretty humble about it most of the time. Most of the F-15C guys I've seen, they're rocking 8x0 with AMRAAMs, and when they shoot all 8 and all 8 are hits, they don't come back and like celebrate and keep the right hand free. They actually start debriefing. Well, we could have prioritized this missile a little better.
Hey, God, I wish I had 8 AMRAAMs.
Yeah, dude. Kelso, are you talking about the one? Are you talking about the one in Alaska when we were like young, first Korea tour?
No, actually, a separate red flag at Nellis I went to from Davis-Monthan. But the one in Alaska was similar idea, right?
Dude, and the reason I bring that up is, do you remember it? Because it was those guys, they were the lead escort squadron, the Jacksonville guys. It's like a squadron full of like old patches at this point. They're like, there's like 100 F-15C patches in Jacksonville. It's like, I wonder why. Jacksonville's awesome. But they were also there to teach, if you remember the JASDAF guys. And probably the thing I remember most was when the JASDAF was the escort lead, and that dude got up there and debriefed as the JASDAF lead. He had been not taught, but like he had seen the 15C guys out of Jacksonville like debrief the whole time, exactly what Kelso was saying. And that guy was like debriefing, and he's like, well, escort, we lost 9 fighters, but that's our job. We lost them, but mission accomplished. So, that's fine, right? And we all kind of chuckled, and we're like, yeah, I guess that's right. Like, that's a good point. JASDAF, man, like, that is your job, and you guys crushed it because everyone else got to their target, and the mission was a success. And it was because I think those Jacksonville guys were, like, leading for the first 8 days until the last day when JASDAF took over.
Yeah, for context, that's Japanese Air Force.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, acronyms, I'll get there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, no, when was that red flag? Was that when was that, Duffle?
That was 14. That was the one, Kelso. Do you remember we played golf in Misawa? And then Furball was leading the 6 ship, and that was the one where we had our stupid hats on with the hair, the spiked hair, and then Hummer just like slapped it off my head when we got
Yeah.
I'm walking around base at like midnight with the sun out, like in my uniform with this ridiculous hat on.
Yep.
That was I want to say June, July of 2014, going out from Korea. So that was always the Korea tour, right? The Dragons, the Fiends, and then the guys down from Kunsan would go out to a red flag Alaska and do the long trip. We would always see the Vipers like passing us on their tanker track on the way over the Pacific because we had to go to Misawa to make the duty day work.
That was the most depressing thing I have ever been a part of. You're flying at 240 knots and you're looking at your time to go, and it's like 11 hours. And a 6 ship of F-16s or the KC-135 doing 0.84 Mach just goes right over your head. And I'm thinking,
they took off.
They're going to get there twice as fast as I am.
Yep.
Oh. And then I just grabbed a jam.
When I showed up to Korea, the Fiends were at Red Flag, Alaska. So August of 14, like July, August of 14, the 4th of August is when I showed up. And the first one I went to was, I think a couple of you guys were there, but I remember the Dragons, they took off to go home. The story of going home is an interesting one, but the Dragons took off to go home. We took off 2 hours after them, passed them about 200 miles out of Misawa. We landed in Korea. They landed in Misawa. And they were a little bit, they were so mad. I had so many text messages when I landed that they were just like, we cannot believe that you passed us on the way home. But
Oh yeah.
but yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we had to do the Misawa jump because not that the jet couldn't fly, but it would have been like a 16-hour sortie from Korea, which violates all duty day. So we're like, dude, I remember sitting in the Dragon's Lair and Furball screaming at me like, are you going to take off in the next 5 minutes or not? Because we have no gas and we had 2 tanks.
Yeah.
And it was like, and there was no AOS plan. Because it was our own way. Like our AOS was from Misawa. So the Dragons had to get ourselves to Misawa on time. And it was like a bunch of dudes like me and Kelso doing fuel planning as wingmen. And we're like, that's probably right.
Rich, let's talk a little bit about risk. Is it riskier to do a 1-day waiver to fly the 16-hour flight from Korea to Alaska, or to leave 20 A-10 pilots in Japan for 3 days waiting for a tanker? Because I'll tell you, we had some fun in Japan for that 3 days waiting on the next tanker. I mean, we climbed Mount Fuji at like 9 p.m., got there, summited at 3:30 in the morning. Some of the guys didn't even leave Tokyo, though. We took a train to Tokyo, and a couple of the guys were like, this is looking pretty good. We're going to bail on the Mount Fuji idea.
Was that was 2015, right? The second time you went, because that was not when I was there in 14.
That was y'all's 2015, because then that was also the Great Mario Kart Expedition.
Yeah, that's right.
I had just missed that. I was in Moody at that point.
2014 was when the Office of Special Investigations was investigating Chip because I had stolen a 30 millimeter barrel and a table out of the O Club.
That's correct. That was great.
I returned both of those things, for the record.
Yeah. Well, I remember the commander came in and was just like, because I was the only wingman. I was the only LPA like the last day that was on a mission. And he walks in and he just goes, Duffle, where the hell is the table and the barrel? I don't care. OSI is interrogating Chip. Just do something about it. This place is the Twilight Zone. I'm so happy we're leaving tomorrow. I was just like, I'll be honest, I don't know, because I had to fly this morning. I've been here since 5 a.m. And the best part was Rig and Rally were there, and they were like, actually, we can back that up. Duffle has been here working, so he'll find out, but it wasn't him at this point. I was like, thank God, because this has been one hell of a 2 weeks or 4 weeks in Alaska.
Meanwhile, in the back of his mind, Rig knows it was me because he egged me on to take the table, because he built that table when he was stationed in Allison the first time.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, man.
Satan, you stolen anything off any Hawg memorabilia? You stolen anything like that?
Oh, yeah. Not Hawg memorabilia, but hey, it's me. I've been in charge of many shenanigans over the years. My fondest memory is probably when we were TSP to Korea, 2011, out of the Bulldogs, and we went over to the Fiends one night, and we stole their Tom Cruise popcorn machine out of their bar, and went on the roof and painted a 2-scale CCIP gun cross on the roof of the Fiends with this bright green paint that stayed there for a very, very long time. That was a great, great night. And here's a shout out to Brother Thrill, who was one of the ringleaders of that little extravaganza. So Thrill, longtime A-10 pilot that we lost about a year ago now to cancer. One of my mentors as a young wingman. Growing up in the Hawg, and I think has flown with everybody in this chat. Awesome dude who was taken way too soon. So here's the Brother Thrill and all the shenanigans.
I need about 30 seconds. I'm going to go fill a glass with something appropriate for this.
Go. Approved.
You should have drove down here. I got a handle of Jack with me.
I was gonna say, it's like we're just hanging around. It's like for those of you listening right now, this bro chat is, we've got Utah, we've got the East Coast, we've got the DC area, and we've got Germany for Satan. We are across time zones at this point. So when we look at it, this is global. We're going global with some of this stuff,
right.
But never too early to have a cocktail with your bros. So
My wife did
It's
look
also
at me a
cheap.
little funny when I grabbed the handle of Jack from the bar and brought it into the office. She's like, "Are you already drinking?" And I was like, "I'm nervous. Podcasts are anxiety inducing."
Just got a little something to take the edge off. It's all good.
No, it's good. No, exactly. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, just AOS movements in the A-10 are just. I remember that was like the whole thing. We were going from Sigonella to Al-Udeid, and I just remember the whole thing was you have the 600-gallon tank, like you have the sergeant fledgers, and it's like get up to altitude, everybody go max, and then call out your airspeed, and we'll go lowest airspeed -5. And it's just like, and as we're going through Fulda, I was in an AOS with Fulda, Pong, Ponch Massara, I think a couple other guys. But Fulda was like 194 knots. And I was just almost threw up because I knew that we were going to be flying the rest of the way, at least for the next probably 300 to 500 miles at 190 knots on the boom of this tanker, this KC-10 that's about to fall out of the sky. KC-135, a little bit better, a little bit lighter, a little bit overpowered with the new engines. But KC, oh God, I thought this jet was going to fall out of the sky with me on it.
Yeah.
And
when you're refueling on a KC-10 at like anything close to 200 knots, the angle of attack of that tanker looks ridiculous from the wing position. I mean, you're used to refueling on a 135, and you're looking at an airplane that's maybe a little bit nose up, and then you see a KC-10 doing the 200-knot refuel, and they're like this with the flaps out and the bow wave. Trying to punch through that bow wave to get on the boom is not a good time.
Gotta go low.
no.
Gotta go low.
Oh my gosh.
Now we've earned
All right.
every
I'm not qualified to talk
rear-end
about
bird
tanking
strike.
the A-10.
Valid.
Yeah, every rear end bird strike joke we have earned 10 times over. I don't even get mad at those anymore. It's like, yep, we're slow. What are you gonna do?
Yep. Not even mad. Hey, Duffle, are you good at getting on the tanker? Are you an expert at that?
I'd say I'm pretty good at it. Finding the tanker is different than staying on the tanker or getting on the tanker. The yips are real. There was a 2-week period in Iraq and Syria where I was like really bad at tanking at night. And, 6 months later, people are still talking about it. And it was like the exact quote out of Superbad where it was like, people don't forget. And I'm like, dude, that was like 6 months ago. And they're like, yeah, dude, come on. You're never going to live this down.
It was like Tiger Woods right after the mishap, the confidence was gone.
Dude,
you don't have it. Once the confidence is gone.
Dude. It was like 5 missions in a row over the course of 2 weeks where just getting on the boom at night was not possible for me. And like, I never went home and I always got gas, but it took about 3 times as long as it should every time. And then finally, after like halfway through, they're like, are you using your NVGs? And I'm like, no. And they're like, you're an idiot. Put your NVGs down and use them to get on the tanker. I'm like, oh.
But in your defense, every manual and regulation we had at that time said, thou shalt not tank with night vision goggles on.
Well, and honestly, the first time I'd ever done it was I did it once in Korea as a wingman, and then went to Moody, tanked never, and then deployed. And I was like, oh, it worked in Korea that one time, so I'll do it again. Yeah, it was not pretty for a few weeks there early in the OIR tour.
It's okay. It's okay. One of the best hog pilots I know.
But
2 weeks,
not
2
getting
weeks,
tanker.
not getting gas.
Yeah, I got 2.5 hours for you. I can't do these 8-hour missions, not because I don't want to, because I can't get gas.
You want Duffle in the target area. You don't want him on the tanker with you.
Yeah. We just have him land somewhere in the dirt nearby and have a fuel truck pull up, gas him up, and then he gets right back in the target area. Takes about as long to get to the tanker track when you're in Iraq and Syria. Might as well have just been landing at one of those MFBs that they had set up with the soft guys. That would have been easier.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and finding the tanker in Hawg is hilarious because all of your bros. I remember as an LNO as a wingman going to the Karaoke, And the Raptor guy was just like, wait, you guys find the tanker without a radar? And I'm like, well, by default, because I don't have one. And he's like, what? How? And I'm just like, you talk to the tanker and, you know, get an idea of where he is and then go find him. And they're like, I'm like, dude, just, you know, for me, just do A-10 Appreciation Day and find the tanker without a radar. And he literally said, no, that's dangerous. Okay.
That's dangerous. Like, bro, he's at a hard altitude, right? You fly straight at him 1,000 feet below. It'll be okay. Oh man.
I swear if we like told an F-35 flight lead right now, hey, go find the tanker in the weather without your radar on or with no SA other than comm and air-to-air TACAN, well, it would be.
They wouldn't take off. They'd be like, you know what? We'll fly this one tomorrow.
That probably would be an ORM cancel.
I mean, well, that's the funny part, right? Is a lot of the fighters, the radar being in op that's a mission crit, right? It's a no-go if you got radar out. You're stepping to a spare, and if there's no spare, you're kanked. So
yeah, it's like mission essential like list of equipment is when you're looking at is I don't know, use your radar to guide your missiles and and find things. So it
makes sense. I mean, as an outside observer, it makes sense to me. Like if my job is to protect Duffle and Kelso in a 2-ship, and that job requires me to have a thing that sees beyond my eyes, and I don't have that thing, like, and I show up without it, I'm basically useless.
It's accurate.
Let's do a fix-to-fix with the air attacking, guys. It's easy. Piece of cake.
Piece of cake.
Oh, yeah.
Peyton, did you just use the term fix to fix?
Hey, you guys never did one of those?
Oh, yeah. I did a number of those.
Yeah, come on.
Is that even, Flash, is that even in
man.
pilot training anymore? Do they still do fix to fixes in pilot training?
No way.
Hey, off of, it is my understanding that the true fix to fix is actually illegal in accordance with regulations now. You have to have some form of GPS INS backup to even do one off of it. What you got?
You can't do nothing.
Is that
you can't
true?
do nothing. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that they don't do in pilot training anymore between, you know, any of the formation, takeoff, landing stuff, and then all the basic nav stuff. It's way different now. But no, that's the other thing I do in my current job is interact with a lot of other communities that, you know, I didn't interact with in the A-10. And whenever I explain like how we do things, they just are like, what? There's no way. Like, you don't have this. You like fly around without what? You did this?
What's like the number one thing that makes people like literally like turn their head like RCA dog at you when you talk about the Hawg?
Yeah.
Over specifically in Europe.
Yeah, like I would go out and practice, you know, degraded stuff with like no link, no TGP, no, you know, and none of the stuff that we now consider standard, not even fancy or anything like that. It's just like, hey, we're just going to go lay outside, we use binoculars to find the target. We're going to, you know, turn off GPS and we're going to shoot the gun and still hit the target. And people are like, what? No way. But yeah, you can do it. It's easy. It's great. They're called tactics. You just have to practice them.
In their defense, this jet was designed for that.
Yes.
Right. Whereas, like, if you look at what the A-10 was designed to do when it first was built, was like, there's a gun and there's a dude. Point gun at thing, kill thing. Literally nothing else is required.
Yep.
And like, I think it was Warthog where I always laugh, and I told this to dudes when I was teaching, like, you know, degraded bombing. I was like, if you ever find whichever pages in Warthog where the guy is mad at himself for dialing in the wrong mill depression for his like CBU drop in Iraq. And I'm like, it's 2019. I'm like, so be happy that that's not a thing you have to do every time. And that's a thing we teach you in case it fails. But like CCIP works really, really well.
Yeah.
But to Satan's point, if it fails, guess what? You're like, okay, it's about here. this is the elevation. I'm going to try this. And we see it at WIC all the time because we do that degraded ride. And the first time you do it as a student, you're just like, yeah, the CAF didn't really teach me to do this very well, degraded. Like, we were close, but now I actually understand it. And I'm just, the jet's designed for it, right?
I don't know if it was just because Sweetness was in our squadron, but like when I was
that's probably why.
Yeah. Whatever story I'm about to tell, it was because Sweetness was in our squadron. But like, I don't know. I went to Lorenzo Harris, and I was like, hey, am I going to get to drop like with this computed deliveries at some point while I'm at some point while I'm in this squadron? I was like, because I'm going out there and I'm just doing degraded bombing every single day on Grand Bay. And I was just like, and I'm very close to slinging one of these bombs off range every single time I hit the pickle button. And
dude, you don't need a degraded delivery to sling a bomb off range, right? I can attest to that and tell you that you can do that with a full working system whenever
Anybody
you
can
want
do
to.
it.
Are we going to hit Duffle Crater in this? Are we going to talk about Duffle Crater?
No. I wasn't. I'm just saying, can confirm that you can drop off range with a computed solution.
Hey, it's like me and Kelso know, man. It's like we're there and present, but U-28, rest in peace, man.
Oh, jeez.
Get you.
I was in the other lane. Tizzle was there and present. I was absentee as Hawg 2 and responsible for the whole thing. It was great.
Hey,
not a problem.
When the DO is in the flare and somebody says, I'm going to need to talk to Flash when I get back in the building. Like, excuse me. But yeah.
So this hits on two pretty, I think, important cultural aspects of A-10 life. Like you guys are hitting on. Like we do degraded stuff. I don't know. I would guess 10 times more than anybody else. Like rough guess, 10 times more often we were doing things with manual bomb sites, GPS not working, no data link. And it's embedded in the culture. Like we're out in Korea. I'm getting ready to go on a forward air control sortie. And it's like, I'm not getting any satellites and my targeting pod doesn't work. And I call over to my instructor pilot. I'm like, hey, this jet's really not doing good today. I would like to get a different airplane. And he's like, what is it? I'm like, I don't have a targeting pod that's functional and I am not picking up any satellites for GPS. He's like, you know how to fly VFR, right? I was like, yes, I'm familiar with visual flight rules and I could probably do that. He's like, okay, what do you need a targeting pod for? I was like, finding targets. He's like, you got your binoculars? I say, well, yeah, I do have my binoculars. He's like, guess you better find those targets with binoculars. Let's go. Right? And I'm like, okay. And you know what? It still works. You can still go out there, you can still find targets with binoculars, and you can pull out a map. You can figure out where that target is on a map, pass 4 or 6 digit coordinates. You know, you're not passing anything that's Cat 1 for somebody to sling a GPS guided weapon at it, but you're getting them in the ballpark. And that's something that nobody else is training to. Like when the A-10 goes away, that skill set will die. That's one of the things that I think culturally stood out to me in the A-10 community is like, we regularly just turn stuff off to make sure that we can still operate in those degraded modes. And then when you turn it back on, man, everything's so easy. Everything gets so easy when you turn the good stuff back on.
It's like if you train to the most difficult task, then all of a sudden you give yourself all these toys, then it's a beautiful thing. I told the story a couple weeks ago in the squadron, and somebody just looked at me and I, like, no kidding, their face was like this for about 6 to 9 seconds. An uncomfortable amount of time. Cause similar to what Kelso was just talking about was when I was in Hawg B course, I asked a couple things. I was like, how do I keep up with like 4.6 and restrictions? This is like, how do I do that? Like, I really want to be able to. I haven't been able to write and fly yet, and I can't remember who the IP was. I wish I could. It sounds like a McGruff comment, but I remember he just looked at me, just like, hey man, the only reason you're here is because I can't hit your pickle button. And I was like, I kind of like looked at him and I was just like, what do you mean? And he's just like, I will get you to the target. You could have nothing but a gun and I will get you to the target. I will get you visual. I will get visual friendlies, tally the target, and you will hit what I tell you to hit. He's like, in fact, I'll put a rocket down and you just shoot at it. He's like, and then you drop your bomb on it. And he's like, I wish I could hit your pickle button. You actually slow me down. And I was,
wow.
That's CCA, right. Man. That's CCA version 0 right there.
Dude, wow. That's I wish I was told that as a wingman.
That's how our cultures began. That is from the early days of the A-10 community, because they didn't have all of the things that make wingmen so effective on their own back then, you know. And it was really hard to.
What was that? What was that? He was like, was that CCA version 1 or what were you saying?
Yeah, CCA version 0. I mean, that's really it. Right?
Is a human wingman.
Yeah. CCA version 0 is your B course wingman who's just out there like, oh, hey, okay, I'll follow you around. And you had to roll in and shoot smoke, and they would maybe occasionally tally your mark and shoot the smoke. But now, whatever. It's the whole thing is, you know, it's you got to learn to do long division by hand before you get your fancy calculator. And I think in the quest of trying to do the more faster, cheaper thing, the Air Force has stopped teaching long division by hand and pilot training, and we're all in on your TI-83 or 69 whatever gravity calculator. And so I'm concerned that certain skill sets are getting atrophied with modern stuff. But I'm concerned, but I'm not worried. If we want to take things to where things are going with the future of the A-10, future of the community, and all that stuff. It sucks that the jet is going away. Guys, feel free to. I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are, because eventually, in the next couple of years, right now, if things continue, the jet will go away, and there is no replacement. There is no jobs placement program for a significant amount of the pilots to really maintain a CAS FAC CSAR culture, all the blue collar stuff that we were talking about earlier, and so we're gonna lose a lot. We're gonna lose something. It's gonna be tough to quantify until it's actually gone, but we are gonna be giving something up. I was for a long time worried about that, but in the last, I don't know, 6 to 9 months or so, I'm not worried anymore. As if you go to the Air Force Museum, and if you know your history, you'll know that this has all happened before. Like the Air Force has done this before. The Air Force got really good at close air support. Pete Casada was the first commander of Tactical Air Command. He invented CAS in World War II, and then, you know, the Air Force kind of gave up on that because it's like, oh, we're in the nuclear age, and, you know, Strategic Air Command runs the show, and blah, 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 blah. And then Korea War rolls around, and lo and behold, they have to do CAS. And so they go out, and guys learn how to do CAS in fast jets, and then in, you know, bringing slower things back and reinventing TACPs, the guys on the ground who were embedded with the Army who call in airstrikes with the radio. And they relearned how to do all that stuff, and they got really, really good at it. And then once again, the Air Force is like, all right, that was cool, but we're going to go on to this other thing over here. And then 15 years later in Vietnam, same thing.
We back.
And
that's where you get your A1, you get your O1s, your O2s, your Ravens, your Coveys, all the facts out there, as well as everything else that's been very, very well documented. So if to add a giant dose of nerdery to the podcast, I mean, if you're a Battlestar Galactica fan, man, all this has happened before and all this will happen again. Like, we're going to get into a fight somewhere.
What a great quote.
Thank you. I'm glad. See, it's one of those things where a bunch of people are not going to get it, but the people who do get it, they're going to be your best friends. So, this is going to happen again. We are going to get in a fight somewhere, despite the Air Force and the DoD's best efforts to plan for, only high-end Russia or only high-end China or only whatever. But the one thing we've been perfect at is not getting it right as far as the future fight goes. And I'm willing to bet that we're going to have to go back out there once again and support the 18-year-old kid with a rifle who's trying to hold on to ground, because in the 8,000 years of recorded history, that's what we do, is we send young people into places with weapons that hold ground. And we're going to need people who are experts in the air domain in terms of backing those guys up. So I'm willing to bet that there will be Hawg drivers at least still alive, or somebody who at least remembers how to do all the stuff that we've been talking about here for a while, to kind of replant the seeds, if you will, in terms of how to do all those things. But that was a long rant on my part, but I'm sure I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about all that.
And that's perfect, because like that's where, again, when you look back at military history, is yes, you always have to prepare for the future fight, but it seems that in preparing for the future fight, you don't learn from history again. That you're just like, this has happened every time. Something happens every single time. And that to your end of either ground you hold, you have to hold it somehow. Like, you take ground, you have to hold it somehow. And that's going to be the case in warfare forever, in the event that we elect to do it. And we've talked on previous podcasts where it's like, I mean, the future war with, like, if that were to occur with China, that is awful. Like, nobody wants that. So we prepare for it, but at the same time, you still have to hold on to the basic skills that have been present in warfare throughout history. And I am also concerned, but not worried. The thing that concerns me is that we have a game plan to get rid of the A-10, and then it truly, the actual mission set and culture goes away. It's like, because at some point there is going to be nobody there to teach CAS, to teach CSAR, to teach FAC-A, which we can get into, because Kill Chain Solutions Inc. sounds like a fantastic way to steal money.
Don't steal my idea, man.
Dude, I'm not going to steal your idea.
Kill Chain Solutions Incorporated. It's a good idea.
That's the thing.
That's how we all get rich.
What I don't want is I don't want all the Hawg pilots to go away, and Hawg pilots that have done some of the things that you guys have done and that we have done, and there's nobody there to talk about it, and nobody there to be the dude in the room that raised his hand and be like, hey, I know how to do that. And they can take those concepts and apply them to whatever airplane or platform or room they're sitting in. That cannot go away. And I'm, again, Satan, like, to your point, I'm concerned, not worried, because I don't think it will. I think there's enough, and people that care enough, specifically a few of you guys, that care enough that are not going to let it die.
Well, I think what worries, I mean, that is, everything you said is true about concerned, but not worried, I guess.
Yep.
Semantics.
Yeah, no, but I know what you're saying. My actual worry, to go like a step past concern, if you will, is that, like, I am in a unique position, right, where I'm going. And people like me that are switching from, 8, 9, 10 years in the Hawg, I'm going over to the F-35. I am very specifically being told, you will teach B course and TX. Why? Well, 2 reasons. One is we don't have enough F-35 pilots in the CAF. So people that are like F-35 babies that have been doing it forever, we need them in UK, we need them in Alaska, we need them at Hill, right? We need them in the fighter squadrons in the CAF. The other one is, how do we take everything we just talked about and, like, maybe, just maybe, when I'm at Eglin and I am teaching a TX course or a B course, and like in the bar one day, we talk about, hey, remember that time like your HUD didn't work? Granted, I mean, it's weird there's no HUD in F-35. It's going to freak me out. Flash, please help me when I call you and I say, what is going on in this jet? But it's like, hey, like when you talk about it, at least maybe some of the young dudes are like, oh, yeah, we should probably think about what does that mean if I have this thing fail? Can I still do this? Can I still do that? Right. And I think we were talking about it on, again, your 6 million text reference earlier. Like we were talking about it, and it's like, dude, when things fail in the A-10, the jet is designed to still work. Again, I don't know, but it sounds like in newer jets, there are certain things that like when it doesn't work, you don't go.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Right. But that helps us in saying like, do I train to that? If the answer is I don't take off, the answer is no. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of brain bites. But for the things that you still can take, making sure that the dudes understand why I said, like, I think it was in the text chat, it was like, I think people need a working understanding of the physics and the technology behind what they have. They don't need to be experts. They don't need to be the engineer, but they need to understand how it works so that when it's not working properly, like, okay, cool. I know why it's not working. I know what I'm getting out of that system. I know what I'm not getting out of it. Here's how I do my job with that limitation.
Right.
So that's where like it's a difference. We're in like, I think it's the best example in the A-10 is like we know how the gun works, right? And you land, you had a gun malfunction, and you're like, hey, maintenance, this is what happened. And then of course you get like I'm going to say crusty old senior, but like they're all. I actually had great experience with all my maintainers, especially in the 75th. But like they're like, this kid doesn't know what he's talking about. He messed up. The gun isn't broken, and you're like, well, no, this is what happened. I think it's this. This is probably what like the issue is. And it's because you understood your system. The difference is that's mechanical and it was designed by like hard men in the 60s. Now in future jets, it's engineers with code. And it's like, hey, what band is that in? What frequency is that on? And understanding that like, hey, I have systems that just straight up don't work in certain parts of the spectrum. And I need to understand that. And if I don't understand that, I'm going to get to what you were talking about, Flash, which is guys being like, I don't understand. Like, why didn't I see that guy? It's like, well, like there's a little bit of physics behind why you didn't see that. And you have to relate that to the systems you have and understand why. And like, if I see that in the 35, we're not getting that like working understanding, I'm assuming we are, but maybe we're not. Maybe there's so much going on and so many things to learn that there's no time. And I think it's kind of like in the B course, we saw it when we were at WIC, really was my second Korea tour, where you started to see dudes be like, dude, we teach like FAM for certain things in the B course now, in the A-10, that we're like, wait, that's a FAM thing? And they're like, yeah, we figured you would just teach that in the CAF. I'm like, that's fine, but we need to know that dudes are coming out of the B course having like one ride with this particular, thing.
Oh, yeah,
right.
That
is my worry. That is my actual worry is that maybe we have gone.
I'm not sure. Like what we need to have is again that concepts that have been tried and true, and just understanding of the end state of the mission, like where we don't have really an understanding of the end state of the mission because of whatever reason. And so now when things start to degrade or dynamic things happen, is you're just like, I still have an eye on the prize of like what the end state is. I have to get there somehow. And I can still get there by doing this. And I can still get there by doing this. And I have no working systems, but just me being an airplane in the sky contributes to the mission.
Yep.
And understanding that, I think hopefully doesn't go away. But yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Understanding the combination.
If you ask me what's going on in the F-35, I'm going to tell you, I don't know. Cause you have to have a PhD to understand what's going on under the hood. But I don't know, man. And then yeah, good luck getting the kids in the bar, my friend. As we've also heard.
Dude, that's I will say that is on the chat from the unnamed person who we will not name, who decided that he was too cool for this. That like when he said that like that's not a thing, the first thing, Kelso, the first thing I thought of was, and if Crystal's upstairs and hears me, she's going to laugh. But it was like we would be debriefing in the 66th, a Hawg sortie till 2:30 a.m. And then all of a sudden you're just like, well, it's already 2:30. Like, what's another 2 hours of being Kelso violently agreeing and yelling at each other in the bar? Like, me getting home at 5 versus me getting home at 3:30. What's the real difference?
It's the same.
Right? And you're like, so me and Kelso are going to yell at each other at 3 a.m. Kelso would know the whole time we agreed. I wouldn't. It would take me an hour and a half to get there, but Kelso just entertained me yelling in violent agreement for a long time. But like then all of a sudden you're like, well, the sun is up and it is time to go home. And it sounds like that's not the mindset, which is a little concerning.
Well,
now, dude, I get it. I was the same dude teaching it. Nellis taught you this every time. It's like 6:15. You get out of a debrief, and all the guys TDY are like, "Hey, let's go downtown and gamble." And I'm like, dude, I live here.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go home. Like, I'm not going downtown with you. I'm going home because my house is 22 minutes that way, right? But like, and I get that part. But it's like, dude, yeah, you walk you go right out the back, go to the corner, and you're like, oh, the sun is rising. Look at Sunrise Mountain. It's beautiful. But it's just like there's a happy medium, I think, between me and Kelso till 5 a.m. and just like leaving at 3:59, being like, we're done hanging out. Because I learned more from, especially the B course. Like I was in the Lobos second to last class, I think. Satan would remember that as a B course instructor. Well, you weren't there at the time, but like the Lobos are now in Missouri, I think, as the active, like they manage people. Is that right?
Yeah, they're the active duty.
But like we were in the last B course class. I learned more just in the bar in the Lobos from random A-10 dudes from the Bulldogs just coming over and being like, hey, what's the B course doing today? And you would just sit there and talk after you were getting done, getting debriefed by McGruff, who probably said things like, hey, man, it's physically impossible for me to fly both jets. So just like get there and press this button. But that's where you learn that stuff was in the
know what? Part of the difference between our early pilot days and the new guys might just be that we were surrounded by experienced people who had done a lot of fighting in combat. And you don't get those stories in the flight brief or in the flight debrief. You get those stories after a cocktail in the heritage room, AKA squadron bar. Yeah. And man, I mean, those guys were everywhere, right? Like if you think back to 2015, 2016, we were surrounded by guys that had been on 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq. And now if you go into a squadron bar down at the CAF, well, like you're lucky if you see 2 or 3 people that have 1 deployment under their belt. And that's part of the difficulty when you're in peacetime, right? Like withdrawal from Afghanistan, there isn't a whole lot of active fighting going on with U.S. forces. So slowly but surely, the experience is retiring. It's going to the reserves or the guard, or it's just straight up leaving and going to the airlines or greener pastures elsewhere. And it's really hard to find those stories that we all learned from in the squadron bar down at a CAF bar this week, right? Like if I go down to, I don't know, the 4th, right? If I go to the 4th and I'm in the bar this week, like maybe there's 2 or 3 IPs that have done a combat deployment that are going to be able to tell me what their experience was like on that deployment. But all the wingmen, nothing. Young flight leads, nothing. Yeah. And a lot of the deployments that are happening are very much like presence. It's like we're keeping a presence in case things get bad. So there's not a whole lot to talk about with those deployments. So I think that's part of it. But the other part is like world's changing, Duff. World's changing a lot. Like people are, especially in fighter pilots, they're getting healthier. They're taking care of their bodies. We got the human weapon system program that guys are getting serious about. I
literally left in the middle of this to make sure I had like a shot of whiskey on this. Like that's, I guess that's a bygone era.
It's gonna help you. You're gonna help you when you get to the B course and you're teaching. You're gonna have to be ready for that. It's different.
Well, because that was the thing.
You're gonna need
great point. Because again, like I literally had someone that I would at times go in the scheduling office and he'd be in a recliner and in his bar at his house had his obituary hanging on the wall because he was declared dead because people didn't know where he was. And just like, and then once a year we got to hear those stories. And then you talk to other guys and they just have these things, most of them centered around the time they screwed up and fixed it. And that was that's another cultural thing in the A-10 that I love is just like, hey, I almost messed this up. I am not ever going to let you mess it up. Like, I'm not going to let you mess it up. I'm going to try to instill this knowledge into your brain so that if you see this picture again, you're not going to mess it up because I almost did. And it almost cost this. And so those were
I did.
Stories. What?
Or, I mean, the stories are I did mess it up. I did mess it up. Like, I screwed that up royally. And I had always assumed that was a across the board thing. Maybe it's not. Maybe I feel like for the most part, it has to be at least.
If you're going to be a good fighter pilot, you need to love the smell of dirty laundry, dude. Like that needs to be a thing. If you don't have,
and that's what I'm saying.
Laundry,
like it's got to be across the board for the most part, right?
Yeah, it is.
Well,
it is.
Again,
it's just
that goes to. It really depends on like your squadron leadership. You know, that's not necessarily a community wide thing. That's going to be whatever your commander or whatever appetite is for, airing of grievances, airing of mistakes. And you have to have that open environment. If you're going to have a successful fighting unit, you need to know where your limitations are. To quote Dirty Harry, a man's got to know his limitations. And if you don't push that in training, you're not going to be an effective fighting force in wartime because you're going to you're either going to underestimate or overestimate. Neither one is good for, I think, obvious reasons. But if we want to, I'm sure there are times when everybody in this room has held back when they shouldn't have, and there are times when guys have hung it out a little bit too far, pushed it a little bit too far, and learned something from it. And I mean, you have to learn how to do that and manage that properly, or you're going to you're going to lose your life if you push it too far, probably. And if you don't push it far enough, you're probably going to cost somebody else their life in combat, that 18-year-old kid on the ground, for example. And so that's getting back to the A-10 culture thing. I think we had a good, generally speaking, usually promoted a culture of good dudeness better than most other places. And I think most, certain individuals that we're not going to name names here, but there are certain instances of, there's certain instances of leadership that maybe didn't promote that environment, that culture, if you will. But I think that's an important thing that needs to continue, and that the guys in this room and our peers now, as we get the blue flower on your shoulders and go out and get the commander toilet bowl on your name tag, you just got to recognize that and have that mindset of loving the smell of dirty laundry, if you will.
I'll be honest, Satan, I've never heard the commander's toilet bowl. Maybe I'm just like not
with a blue flower.
But that's hilarious.
That is really funny. The wreath around the commander.
I am so happy, by the way, about the fact that Satan is like the grizzled lieutenant colonel on this bro chat. It's like, as we're sitting there, it's like, all right, boys, pull up your chairs and let's learn from Papa Satan. It's like there's not a whole lot of people that I would rather do that with, but it's like me, Kelso, and Duff are just the young pups.
We're so young, Flash.
Oh yeah,
we're so young.
I finally got the old command pilot wings, the toilet seat on the wings, I think a week or two ago. I didn't know it until I was like clicking through my PERS or whatever, and it's like, oh, command pilot, hey, cool. Now I got to spend $50 on new name tags for stuff. But yeah, I complained to my wife. I'm like, oh, I'm just double old. She's like, oh, shut up, you're not that old. And I'm like, you're only old if you think you're old. And I'm like, oh, I'm old, not Spidey old, but
I think you're like 3 years.
Dude, or you just don't spend the $50. Or you just don't spend the $50 and walk around with your, what is it, senior pilot? Is that what we are now, senior pilots? Yeah, we're senior pilots, yeah. Dude, it makes me think of like when we were in Korea and I tried for one day to keep my first lieutenant rank on. And like the first day, Droopy Dio, who now actually is at ACC, Droopy just walks in and is just like, "You're a captain. What is your problem? Put your rank on your flight suit." And I'm like, "Well said, sir. I was seeing how long this could last, and it lasted fully 1 minute." He's like, "Yes, tomorrow you will have captain rank on." I'm like, "Got it."
And I will hold you accountable like a captain.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
Is the rank you have here, but really the rank that matters most is the rank you hold in here. That's what you need.
Well said.
Well, dude, honestly, when Kelso, everyone kind of alluded to it, but I've often thought about this. And so, again, positive shout outs. So, Ahab, many of you may know Ahab. I worked with Ahab for like 2 years here in DC as a civilian. Love him to death. Like, I was so happy when he was like, "Hey, I am a civilian in this organization. It sounds like we're working together." I was like, thank God, because I was his weapons officer for like 3.5 months back in 2018. And he was the one that when I would talk about this, he would understand when I said, "Dude, we all, like when I was in high school in the mid-aughts, if you will, I wanted to fly the Hawg for 2 reasons. I grew up in Philly, and so Horsham was there. There was a Hawg unit in Horsham. And so I saw them fly, and I'm like, that's me. I want to fly the Hawg." And you would read in like the newspaper, which, by the way, they still exist, but they're hard to find. Like you would read in the newspaper, like, "Hey, like this Hawg unit went and was in Kandahar or was in Bagram." And you're like, "Oh, they're doing good work." And then you go and meet some of those dudes, and they're like, "Yeah, I deployed 4 times in 7 years." And like, dude, Kelso, Cheetah. I remember seeing the hours printout in Korea, and it was like Cheetah had 77,000 combat hours and like 15 regular hours. And I was like, "Dude, hold on. How in the world did you do this?" And he's like, "Hey, man, every time I PCS'd, that squadron was 3 weeks from going out the door." And I was like, "Yeah, I can move in 3 weeks. All right, let's do it. I'm good." Yeah. And so you see that. And then our generation, to talk with Kelso, like, dude, I got 1 in the A-10, and the reason I volunteered for that A3TW job is because you got to fly with the MDS you were in. Funny story about that. I switched with Score, great man, great F-35 man, so that he could fly with the 35s, and I went 5 months later. Well, funny story, while I was in COVID quarantine, the Hogs left Afghanistan, and I think it was General Kelly at the time, was just like, "Thank you for your decades of service, A-10 community in Afghanistan. All the jets are gone." And I was just like, "Cool, I guess I'll just be at the Karaoke now for 6 months." But it's like you get that 1 deployment now. If you're a teens guy, you got 1, maybe 2. The lucky guys got like that third 45-day one where they were like, "Hey man, I'm new. Can I go for like 45 days?" Yep. And because you want to, and then because we grew up idolizing that. And we thought that's what the A-10 was like, dude, every 6 months you're going somewhere. And like, those are the dudes we looked up to. Those are the dudes that taught us. Yep. We don't have that. And I saw a few, like the negative part, I would say, like, not to say there's negative parts in every community. The one that really got me was when leaders who grew up in that time didn't understand our generation, if you will, of being like, dude, we got into this to deploy. Like, we saw what you guys were doing, and we were like, that's for me. And then they would not understand that was the desire. Because, dude, we were all in high school when 9/11 happened. Like, we didn't join or decide to join prior. We joined because, like, I joined, like, that cemented it for me. I was like, dude, I'm going. I'm 12 years old, and in college I will do ROTC, or I'll go to the academy, and I will go fly planes. That's what I want to do. Yeah. And, like, then we got to the decade, and we're learning from those guys that did it. And to Kelso's point, like, like I'm not one of them. I didn't deploy 4 times.
No.
Right.
Well,
and the fact that we all got 1 or 2.
The reason I wanted to go fly the Hawg was because the 2 old reservists in T6s were Hawg dudes from Desert Storm. And Hawg dudes from
100%.
Desert Storm and Allied Force, and they were just like, hey, let me. And the best compliment I've ever received in my entire career probably is about to go to T-38s, and he was just like, I think you might be a Hawg dude. And from Oprah Winfrey. And he's like, he's like, McVay. He's like, I think you might be a Hawg dude. And I was just like, really? and, but yeah, dude.
You were like, oh, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna go home and tell all my friends.
And I don't know, maybe I still am. I hope I still am. It's like in the F-35, like I will say, and I hope it's similar across with you guys, is whether the jet goes away, whatever happens, and things like that, is there's almost nothing better. I'm still holding on. Like there's nothing better than being able to go like wear a flight suit, walk around and just be like, I'm a Hawg guy. It's like, I'm a Hawg driver, and I was a Hawg driver. I got to do the things and things like that. Like that is a mantle that we all hold very, very dear in our hearts. And it's a mission. It's not necessarily a platform. Like Staten was kind of talking about. It's like the rank you hold in your heart and stuff like that. And I, again, kind of getting towards the end of the bro chat, we can just kind of BS for the rest of it. But it's like, I don't want the Hawg driver.
I thought that's what we were doing. Sorry.
What's up? Think I was ending this?
I said I thought that's what we were doing.
Oh, just BSing? Oh, we are, but I don't want the Hawg driver to go away. If the Hawg goes away, sounds okay. Yep. It's like Satan said, is like, it's been done before. The Air Force still exists and things like that. But it's like, you can't have the Hawg driver go away. You just can't do it. And what I don't want is the powers that be that make decisions to phase out the mindset and the culture as well, which I also am slightly concerned is happening. And so when you look at it,
I don't think anybody is going to intentionally phase out the mindset and the culture. I think it's just going to slowly attrit over time, because once the A-10 goes away, after some period of time, you're not going to have any pilots that have those experiences. Yep. You know, it's just a matter of time. And even right now, we've got folks that are in senior developmental education that are trying to figure out where they can go be either a group commander, you know, or a deputy wing commander. And their entire background is flying A-10s and being really good at it and doing it in combat and leading people well in combat as squadron commanders. But how do you sell the F-15 or the F-16 or the F-35 wing commander that this A-10 leader is the right person to go lead in one of those communities when they have their own bench and they're going to be hiring off of that list? So even though it won't be a particular decision to get rid of the A-10 culture and mentality, the system and the way that the hiring is done is going to accelerate it a little bit more than even just the attrition of not having A-10 pilots. Because some of these guys are going to stare down the barrel. They go to try to get command selected and they don't. And they don't a second time. And they're going to be like, cool, time to retire. Because that's what a lot of folks want, right? Like they're sticking around because they want to command. They want to get on G series orders and they want to lead airmen. And they're not going to have those opportunities because they had bad timing. Like it's nothing against the officer, nothing about their career that says they shouldn't be a colonel leader, but their timing's bad for when the A-10's going away. And like Duffle and I are kind of lucky. We're like kind of the last year group that we can probably transition to the F-35 and not have significant career impacts against us. You know, like if I was a 2007, 2008 year group guy, I'd be thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I am already on my way to senior developmental education. I have no time in any other airplanes other than an A-10. And when I come out of this in my staff tour, the A-10 will be retired. That's a tough pill to swallow. And I'm sure a lot of those guys are thinking about, what do I do next? Do I keep going? Do I try to find other ways to lead? Or do I hang up the cleats because my community is going to be folded by the time I come back to flying? So
I think you got to normalize the diversity. I think if you look at the careers of a lot of the guys in the Vietnam era, especially like the guys who weren't necessarily in the fast moving jets, the guys who were in the O1s, the O2s, the OV10s, those guys ended up, if you look at their career data briefs, they flew a butt ton of airplanes over the years, and not all tactical. You know, a lot of them were in cargo, heavy, whatever stuff, but they still went on to have successful careers. And I think that just needs to get normalized again in the Air Force writ large, especially when, you know, everyone's pushing for like multi-domain everything, and you're trying to have maybe not space anymore because we got Space Force, but you still got cyber, you got all these other different tactical career fields, if you will. I think you just have to get used to that in the Air Force, and I think AFSOC is gonna. I don't know if they're gonna take the mantle, but they're gonna have theoretically the Sky Tractor thing, right? The AT whatever it is, Dusty Crop Hopper. That's going to be kind of the thing for counterinsurgency close air support in theory, right? Or at least you're going to have people who have a primary mission set of providing CAS in a soft type of environment, right? So I think you just have to preserve what you can where you can. You gotta have to reach out to guys who are, you know, no longer flying, no longer doing the mission necessarily to come back and hang out in the bar and keep that culture alive and share those lessons learned that aren't necessarily written down anywhere in any 3-1 or white paper or anything like that. You're going to have the next generation Warthog book. Like, I haven't seen the Afghanistan version or the Iraq version of the old Smallwood Warthog book, which is kind of the definitive, for those out there listening, that's the definitive combat memoir of A-10s in Desert Storm. It's really, really good. It's only like 200 pages. Go out, buy it, read it now. But we don't really have an Afghanistan version of that, I don't think, at least not as far as I'm tracking.
No, and
I don't even know if something like that's possible. But
I was doing something like for an O-plan, and I was talking to an old buddy of mine, and he goes, he was coming back from Europe, and he was helping out with the conflict, and he's on a military plane coming back on a C-130, and a guy sits down next to him, and he just goes, "Hey, I'm the USAFE historian," and he's like, "Can I talk to you about what you were doing?" And he was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because no one writes anything down anymore." And he's like, and he goes, these stories are going to get lost. And he goes, "We have an entire like 20 plus year conflict that we didn't really write a whole lot down. And these stories are not going to get passed on. Like all the books, like Fighter Pilot, and like all the books that we grew up, to Duffle's point, making us want to be fighter pilots. Like I want to do that.
Classification.
Writing books.
Dude, it's overclassification.
Writing books is going away. Yeah, it's classification too. It's like you can't do things. And then again, there was classification back in the day as well. And then the book came out 20 years later. So like our first Afghanistan book, I cannot wait to buy it on Amazon in 2045. And
I'll be your author.
Dude, I'll be
your author for that one.
I'm down, dude. Like you'd be a hell of an author. But dude's like again, the jet's great. I think it's, and the other one is we've been talking about is the evolution of it too, is just like the Viper as the day BFM fighter is now way different and doing way different things, strapping Istas onto that thing. Is the Hawg could do that, and it has. Is like you have just upgraded the airplane, and then the same concepts and the mentality didn't change, it just evolved. And it could do that. Like, what if JASM went farther?
Yeah,
it's like what?
Oh, dude, don't.
What if we put JASM? Speaking of being in the trough till 5 a.m, it was like Mauled and SDB on Hogs was born out of a midnight to 4 a.m. conversation.
Yep.
And all these different things that but you could do so many things. You can put it on there. You throw a hog driver into the seat and say, hey,
if I had a time machine,
the goal is to maintain an over the horizon communication capability for isolated personnel after you shoot your JASM. It's like that's nice. Like
so when you guys had that, I was in Ascent at the time, and I was back for like 3 months. And I remember like the last thing I did in the trough was I came back, Pinch, basically who will be named now. He threw me under the bus.
Pinch, we miss you, man.
Because he was like, hey man, one of us needs to be the Wiz and Phase manager, and one of us needs to do LJ 400. And PETA, great American, is in the van with us down in Florida. And I was just like, well, dude, you've been here for 3 months working the phase management stuff. I'll just take LJ 400. And then PETA just goes, I think you took the wrong deal there, Duffle. And so I was like, you got to be. And Pinch just starts laughing. The reason I bring that up is the entire time that I was gone was this mauled SDB, JASM, what are these ideas? And I remember the last meeting, it was after my Finney flight. And I think it was a couple of the OGs were out for patch night. Or no, it was before my Finney flight, it was patch night. And they were like, well, what would you give up to have these things? And I just said everything. And they were like, what do you mean everything? I'm like, dude, like, what else are we doing? Like, the jet is already well meched for CAS. The pilots are already well trained for CAS, right? Like, we are good at that. Now I want to do things that are, to your point, evolution. And so, like, if we stopped everything else and put these longer range capabilities on the Hawg, that's a win. Because at the end of the day, I can always go back to what I'm good at.
Yeah.
And that's when it was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. But I was probably like hungover when I said that. And I just interrupted the OGs and said everything. I give everything. Like, why wouldn't I? Because I'm already good at the other stuff.
I got the distinct privilege of being in that room too, Duffle, if you remember.
That's right. You were there. And it was that's right. It was patch night.
And
patch day.
Yeah. Oh.
Yep. And it was just like everything, dude. Why wouldn't
I was the first one to pile on when he started going back and saying, no, we have to stay focused on our bread and butter. And I'm like, we could do nothing to this airplane for close air support, combat search and rescue, or forward air control for the next 20 years, and it will still be the best airplane to do those missions. Yep. If we do a couple small things for doing beyond visual range engagement, whether it's supplying decoys to help out 5th gen fighters or supplying long range precision guided munitions, those are things that actually make the A-10 relevant in a pure conflict. And the crappy part is, like, there was still a lot of pushback. The program office had the same mindset of like, we don't have those mission sets. And I'm like, that's because we can't do those things. Once we can show that we can do these things and employ these weapons, then we'll train to the mission sets. But if we can't employ the weapons, there's no point in even training to it. No. And that's when we started getting buy-in. That's when you had program office got on board, OG commanders got on board, wing commanders got on board, and we like just started pushing. And we finally pushed those two across the line. And they're paradigm changing, right? Prior to small diameter bombs,
pure conflict. It's the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. It's the first 2 weeks.
It's the first 2 weeks because everybody, all like working where I work now, the focus is very much on the kicking in the door. First night, first couple weeks of conflict, where if you are somebody in the 0506 range or above right now, your knowledge of the A-10 in another community, you flew Vipers or Eagles or something else, you think of the A-10 as CAS and only CAS, and CAS is in phase 3 if you want to get into the nomenclature of how the Air Force thinks about campaigns. And phase 3 is basically when the Army gets involved and the Air Force starts supporting the Army, and the Air Force is not the supported command, which is what happens in phase 2 when you're doing all the phase 2 stuff. So if you want to make the A-10 a phase 2 platform, you need to do different things to it. And historically, it's like, okay, the only thing that the A-10 can do there is CSAR. And even then, it's like, well, there's too many threats out there, and whatever. We're not really going to be doing CSAR. You're just going to be running around bedding down dudes, so to speak. So,
which is important.
Yeah. Which, by the way, is important. So, like,
Yeah,
even if you're not picking them up, betting them down matters.
Yes, 100%. 100%. But I think Flash or whoever said, like, we could be the tactical version of the B-52, where you have this ancient platform that just stays around forever because it does certain things that nobody else does, i.e., we can carry a bunch of stuff, we can go anywhere, and we can hang around for a long time, relatively speaking, compared to other platforms, which means we can manage your battle space for you. And if you haven't done any homework, or if you haven't noticed, the Air Force has gotten rid of all the TAC C2 platforms until the Wedgetail or whatever comes on board. So you've got really your JTACs running around in vans down by the river with radios trying to do TAC C2 things, which is really your only option, but it's not ideal, right? So there's a lot of stuff that the jet brings to the table. And the only reason why we're getting rid of it is because we say it's time to get rid of it. And it is, but not for the reasons that most people think.
Yeah. And the whole name of the game these days is if I have a single point of failure C2 node, it's going to get shot down. And it's like, hey, that thing is controlling everything. I'm going to make that go away. And it's like, so distributed data passage and just having the amount of things I still say the A-10 is the most interoperable airplane I have ever flown. It's like 5, arguably 6 radios. You can plug in another one. And it's like, I still know how to use a quick draw. But as far as like how that's going is like saddle with a link gateway. You could do some other thing. Anyways, all the things is that you could put it on there and go there. And to Kelso's point, like paradigm shifting. And when we talk about what we're going to do for the kick in the door and first week or two of a peer threat or a peer campaign, is like, all right, well, we got to build these little buddies that fly with us because we need to overwhelm the IADs with numbers. And you're just like, well, there's 340 A-10s still sitting around. It's just like numbers that are our friend. And if you have numbers that can also do stuff, that is a game changer. That is a game changer. And again, has always been a tenet of warfare of mass. And you can mass appropriately with the right capabilities. And I think we're all gonna miss this here very shortly, or we could have done a little better. But that's all right.
You never know.
That's all right,
dude. One positive thing I will say about the way the community's gone in the last couple of years, now that like divestment is a thing, right? Like, dude, I'm here in DC. Like, you can't find anyone. I mean, dude, the crack in the dam happened, right? Congress was like, okay, you can start retiring. And so, like, dude, here's the thing: platforms go away. The last 80 years will tell you that platforms go away. Everyone here has said it. What matters is what that platform taught those people, because of what the people focused on while they're in that platform. The thing that I think is most important to understand is that the A-10 community has done a good job, in my opinion, of quote unquote taking risk to get these people other places. And so like the best one, and so like I will say that, there's a lot of like yelling at the sky about the Air Force is terrible, blah, blah, blah. I will say that like the people that I have worked with across, like in both the A-10 and the now 35 community, they have been awesome. Like I have been very fortunate, because when I called and said, hey man, my priority is my wife is active duty. She's a DO. She needs a command. I need to know that the next 2 to 3 years are a stable thing. And the first thing the A-10 community said to me was, I don't recommend you stay here. I recommend you go somewhere else that can give you that stability, because that's your priority. And I said, okay, got it. And as soon as I called, and this is where I have the like sliver of hope, is that there's so many Hawg dudes that were our teachers back in the mid-teens that are now senior dudes in the F-35. I just like turned to them and was like, hey guys, I have a thing. And they were like, solved. Here it is. Call this man. It's going to happen. And here I am going to Florida, and we have a joint spouse assignment, right? So like the Air Force at the personal level in those communities has taken care of me. And the A-10 community was the start of that by being honest and saying, hey, dude, we would love to keep you, but it doesn't sound like it works for you. And it sounds like I'm not alone in that. And it sounds like a lot of the A-10 dudes are like going to the leadership being like, hey, you know, I've got X number of years left. I want to stay in. I want to keep the options open. And it's like when, I won't name him, but he's now an F-35 weapons officer. When I was a weapons officer and a dude was like, I'm thinking about switching to the F-35. And I said, do it. Like, if you want it, like, there's no reason you shouldn't. If you want to do it, do it. Like, don't let the dudes who have no idea what the F-35 does tell you it's stupid. If it sounds interesting to you, go do it. And we will retain you as an attack/fighter pilot for the next 15 years. Because instead of telling you are a pariah for wanting to switch, you took what we taught you and what you learned here, everything we talk about today, and you moved it over to that new community that, for better or worse, we're going to fly it until we're all dead. That thing will be in the inventory and I will be dead. Right?
What is it that actually makes like an A designated platform?
Dude, I don't know. Well, here's the thing.
Does anyone?
Funny story. When we went to a Neptune,
I don't know. If you go back historically, it's traditionally aircraft that are very capable in an air-to-ground role and self-defense capable in an air-to-air role.
Is that actually written down somewhere?
No, it's just looking at history. Like, that's how I've broken it down in my own brain over the years. Yeah. Of like, you look at the A4, you look at the A6, A7, you look at the A1. Yeah, all of them had some air-to-air capability, but none of them were platforms that you're like, that guy needs to go to the merge today. Like, no, I need them to go blow up a bunch of targets, and then if somebody happens to roll up on them, they need to be able to shoot a heater or shoot some gun at them. But you know, the P-38.
That's a good point.
We should go back to the P designator.
The MQ-9 guy said it's
bring back the P designator, right?
Pursuit.
Ooh. That'd be fun.
We have a new fighter.
I just finished Master
Interceptor Squadron.
Yes. Yeah. Well, hey, with the reorganization of the Air Force, maybe we'll start having some new squadron names. We'll bring back some interceptor squadrons. What was it? The Tactical Air Support Squadron, right? 23rd TAS.
2-4 TAS.
No.
Dude,
23rd?
No, the 2-3.
No, sorry, I'm talking about the one. Sorry, I'm talking about the one when that was the only people we could get to support us.
Correct.
Until they went away.
The F-16 plus Air Support Squadron in Ellis.
We were like, we need fighters. And the 2-4 TAS was like, we're here. And then the 2-4 TAS went away and we're like, we need fighters. And it was just like, oh, okay, no one's saying they're here. Okay, got
Nothing but crickets.
Okay.
Yeah.
To your point, Duffle, there are great people in the Air Force that take care of each other. A lot of people say,
I don't think it's
my big kick right now is people are like the Air Force X and the Air Force Y. And I'm like, no, there's people making decisions. And if you can't do the homework to figure out which person made the decision that you're upset about, then you're going to blame the entire organization. It's not the organization. Like the name, the United States Air Force, there's no one person that gets to hold that name and say, I am the U.S. Air Force. But within the organization, people make good and bad decisions. And folks need to start doing the homework to stop saying the Air Force X. The Air Force sent me to base Y and it was bad for my family. Like, no, there's probably a person at the Air Force Personnel Center that did that to you. And it's probably because they didn't know your family story because your commander wasn't looking out for you and making the phone calls they needed to make. And I think that would really change the way that folks think about retention and think about the Air Force as an organization, right? Because it's like, are people yelling about Google, right? Like, are people yelling about Amazon? Like, if they're working at Amazon, they're not like Amazon X. They're like, my manager sucks and I hate my manager. And you're like, I get it. There's some bad managers out there. There's some bad managers in the Air Force too. Like, the Air Force, that's my new kick right now, is trying to get people to understand that there are humans making these decisions. And you need to try to find a way to hold them accountable.
Yeah. And honestly, I think I will say that my time here in Kelso, you could tell me I'm crazy because you've done it down in, Langley, but like I now see that there is so many people making decisions and also so many people that you thought could make decisions don't actually have the authority or the money or the, wherewithal to make said decision. So like you can get mad at the Air Force and then you like find the guy. You're like, it's him. And then he's like, bro, I can't make that. That goes up. And you're like, what? And so it's
making promises they don't have the authority to make.
Exactly. Right. And so that's where and that's why I started, I wanted to not end it because I will talk forever, but like, I wanted to make sure like people understood, like there are still people taking care of us and they've done well. Like Kelso and I are like, if I think back right now, I think we're the only dudes from like the 9 to 8 to 10, 7 to 10 that taught at WIC that are still active duty. Everyone else was like, dude, we're out. And so we're like the last bastion of that kind of group. But it's because we had people that gave a shit, for lack of a better phrase, about us and got us. Like, dude, I got to go to DARPA for a year. That was cool as hell, right? Like, that was really cool.
You got to be
like,
a DARPA. You got to be a DARPA. Can't go into the 6th vault.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. I was at DARPA, and I showed up at Nellis, and ACC told me I wasn't cleared. So Flash brought me a Jack and Coke from the bar. But that's like, dude, it's like people are looking out for us if you find the right people, and that's who like I hope me and Kelso can be, because we're the ones that stuck around, I guess, for lack of a better term, is we can be those people that when those guys or those girls come to us and say, hey, this matters to me, you can actually look at the person and say, okay, let's work on what makes sense for you, not what, quote unquote, big Air Force. Kelso, by the way, I love the fact that you said it's your new thing is just squashing the Air Force.
Oh, yeah. It's every day. Every single day somebody says, the Air Force, blah. And I'm like, no, the title United States Air Force doesn't do anything. There are people inside the organization that do things.
No, that person, that person sucks. The Air Force doesn't suck.
Yes, that person. Yeah, but here, why did we all join? Because we wanted to fly planes and kill targets, right? Like we wanted to protect friendlies and kill targets, and like the Air Force still does.
That's not why I joined.
It still does.
But it's not why I joined. But I've found other ways to have great enjoyment.
Kelso joined.
You didn't join to fly planes and kill targets?
He joined the Air Force to play lacrosse.
Yeah, and I joined to play Division I lacrosse. I joined to get a great engineering degree and to get my start as an engineer. That's why I joined. I wanted to go.
And you know what's funny about that, Kelso? On 7 April 2024, all of those things are no longer valid for what you do.
No, right? But that's to the point of like, it's a cool opportunity to be in the Air Force because you could join for one reason and find some complete other reason for staying, right? Find a complete other passion and purpose. And that's what happened to me. Dude, my vision was 2,400 when I got into the Air Force Academy. So I didn't even think I could be a pilot. And then 2 years in, my air officer command.
You want to pull on that swing?
Yeah, my air officer command comes to me 2 years in. He's like, hey, you're doing pretty good here handling the sports and the school stuff. He's like, if you sign on to be a pilot right now, we'll fix your eyes. We'll get you PRK, photorefractive keratectomy. I figured out later, which is horrifically painful, but extremely long-lasting results.
I never knew it.
Photorefractive keratectomy. They call it that because they actually rub your cornea away before they do the laser surgery. LASIK, they make a flap out of your cornea and do it, and then put the flap back. My eyes were so jacked up, they had to just rub the cornea off and start over. But dude, again, the Air Force, like as an organization, didn't make that happen. My air officer commanding made it happen. Somebody in the A1 world figured out like there might be some pilot talent out there that has bad vision. We should take a look at the policy on eyes and take a look at these new technologies for fixing people's eyes and see if we can bring in some folks that maybe have bad eyesight but would be good pilots, right? Like that happened while we were in high school. They started allowing LASIK and PRK during that time frame.
Not even LASIK, because like my roommate got PRK, but they couldn't do
LASIK.
LASIK.
LASIK didn't become a thing until like 2015, I think, and it's for certain people. But like there are people making those decisions and coming up with good ideas and bad ideas, just like there are in any other company. So that's why I've been on the kick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't join to kill targets and protect people. But man, I sure have found a love for it along the way.
That's awesome.
Well,
dude, Aflax. I forgot you're an
Aflax.
Aflax, bro.
Air Force lacrosse,
Aflax.
baby.
Aflax. I was like, you probably got something tattooed.
I
like
do.
somewhere.
I have a Roman numeral 11 on my left rib cage that's in the design of a gravestone. And then I put some Latin words in it because I was 21 and kind of an idiot. That standard for the legacy continues, because my dad wore number 11 when he played at Maryland Lacrosse Club. So, carrying on the legacy for Pops.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
All right.
That's awesome.
We're gonna close out the bro chat for this episode 1. Can't thank you guys enough for joining. However, we're gonna close this out. Satan and Kelso, 3-song optimum karaoke set playlist.
All right. So number 1 is
Go.
Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Hands down. You want to get the people
Okay.
going. You put on CCR and you sing Fortunate Son like your life depends on it.
All
Number
right.
2, John Denver, Country Roads Take Me Home. Everyone across America loves that song. You could suck at singing it. People will sing along so loud that it doesn't matter.
And internationally.
And internationally, that's true.
If you saw the NFL in Europe, they were singing it in the stands while the plays were going
Hot take, that song is about Western Virginia and not the state of West Virginia. Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River, those are in Western Virginia. Very hot take. Something to chew on. Something to chew on.
Native Virginia.
Keep thinking about this after the episode and figure out whether or not you think I'm right. All right, number 3. There's a lot of songs that could be at number 3.
Next, Satan, start thinking
But
about it.
so Kelsey has been asking me on a regular basis to do some Top Gun songs. So I'll let you, Flash, you guess which Top Gun song she has me sing at karaoke nights.
I gotta think. Okay, I'm gonna say Top Gun 1, Top Gun
Top Gun
2,
1.
Top Gun 1.
The OG.
Okay. Playing with the Boys. Kenny Loggins.
Playing with the boys.
Not Playing with the Boys.
I was thinking Mighty
Nope.
Wings.
It is Kenny Loggins.
Ooh, Mighty Wings.
Ah,
It is Kenny Loggins.
Danger Zone.
Danger Zone.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And if you're wondering, it is
Damn.
one of the hardest songs to sing in the world. And if you don't give absolutely every ounce of effort, you just look like an idiot. So,
you're gonna
so
fall.
Thursday nights at TJ Sports Tavern 2 get pretty aggressive for me.
All right, Satan, what you got? Close us out.
Excellent choices. So I'm gonna. Great question, by the way. I got to dig back to the Satan and Riot Live set list from Songton. We would usually kick things off, and neither of us is a good singer. So Kelso's a really good singer. Like, he actually has talent and can sound like John Fogerty and all these other guys out there, like, really belting it out. I have zero talent. All right, but I got spirit. I got heart, and you just got to be loud. And the key is singing songs, in my opinion, that everybody else knows the words to, so they can join in with you and make up for your lack of talent by singing along with you. And then you get the crowd energy because you get that participation, right? So we would usually kick things off in Satan and Riot Live with Blink 182, All the Small Things, because everybody kind of knows the chorus of that, or everybody's just kind of going, nah, 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 that whole thing. And it's great because you're just kind of jumping around and singing all that stuff. I think you got to have, in addition to that, at least one ballad in there, like a ballad that everybody else can usually participate in. So, Faithfully by Journey is one that I sang at the Casbah at Al Yadid once upon a time, because everyone can kind of go with the oh, and everyone, there's a lot to that song that goes with being on the road and being away from people that you care about. So that's another good one. And then, oh man, like the third one, if you really want to bring it on home, there's so many good options. It really just sort of depends on the crowd energy and what you got going on. So, I mean, you can go with Total Eclipse of the Heart if you want to take it to that level. You could do that. You could go with, you could go against the grain if you want to do the pop music thing and do something like Kelly Clarkson, Since You've Been Gone, and just start really belting that out, or Skater Boy by Avril Lavigne. That's another favorite. I sang that one at Spasm Mohan's Finney Mass Brief in the Bulldogs when he did his Finney flight in the Hawg. We had the mass brief in the morning. It was like a 5:15 a.m. mass brief because active duty. Why not, right?
Why not?
But I suited up in full flight suit regalia and went up in front of everybody after the top three talked about weather norms and a bunch of other nonsense. And I had one of those, Chinese spy microphones that would Bluetooth in, whatever song you wanted. And I sang a Skater Boy, and it was great.
So I gotta jump in on this. You mentioned Total Eclipse of the Heart. Duffle, I don't know if you ever heard Total Eclipse of SA. So in my weapon school class, we took the song Total Eclipse of the Heart and rewrote all of the lyrics to be about a total eclipse of situational awareness, or SA, and based it off of having horrific command and control.
Dude, that's not the one I remember. I think it was when we were like wingman in Korea. You had a couple songs that you had done.
Oh yeah, mostly Macklemore.
And
yeah, Macklemore was my jam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
it was.
And we danced.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
Yep, that was my jam.
I have not heard that one. I have not heard the.
That's another important part of fighter pilot culture, is singing songs together. We don't talk about it much in public,
correct.
but we sing a lot of songs together in the bars. And I think that's probably why I like karaoke so much, is that I'm on a staff tour. There aren't a lot of fighter pilots. We're 13% manned at Air Combat Command for fighter pilots. So there's not a lot of people for me to go hang out with and sing songs together.
Only Kelso would know that number, by the way.
Yeah. It hasn't eaten at my soul at all.
Expert.
I'm totally fine.
Excellence in
Thank
all
you
we
for
do,
asking.
guys. Excellence in all we do.
As the other day when we were talking on the text chat, when I was just like, there are 245 general officers in the Air Force. Thank you very much.
That number's way high, by the way. Way high.
Dude,
Yeah. 171.
I think did I say like 167 or something like? Anyways, whatever.
171.
Dude, Kelso would know. Kelso would know. But honestly, so there's an 06, and it changes in the Pentagon. They keep track of like where are all the 11Fs in the Pentagon, 06 and below. And it's literally like on an Excel spreadsheet, you don't have to scroll down. Like that's how many people, there's none. And dude, I will tell you, like, my experience here, like, and I said this in the chat, if I want to develop something new, I need a team of really smart physicists, engineers. I don't need a bunch of pilots. I need one or two operators, whether it's whatever the thing is being developed for. They need to be there, but they're not the development. But if you only have 15 people across the place, you can't have someone that's going to use the thing everywhere. And that's the biggest problem. So, like, dude, the deputy of any development should be someone who's going to use it, in my opinion. The lead should be someone who understands the physics or the science or whatever, because that's who understands it. But, like, when you only have one Excel screenshot of people, you don't have enough people to put around to be like, does this work?
Yeah. That's my biggest.
Because, like, someone has an idea, and then all of a sudden you have, like, the one F-35 pilot's like, actually, that's not going to work because this doesn't work. And they're like, what? And they're like, well, yeah, have you ever flown it? And they're like, no. It's like, well, okay, let me tell you, it doesn't work. So, yeah. Dude, but it's a small number.
I am worried.
Well, it's mainly because people on the bottom of this chat got out and quit. And the people on the top of this
Hey,
I'm on
I've
active,
just
man.
moved
I've
over.
been active duty for the last 4 years.
No, I will say, I think the last thing I will say, and I know I've talked way too much today, I think the Air Force in general needs to stop. Like, that was obviously a joke because I love you guys. The Air Force in general, quote, the Air Force. I would say senior leaders, the ones I've seen that have said things like people going to the Guard and Reserve, like they kind of equate it to quitting. And I'm like, whoa, hold on, sir. That is equal to retention. That is actually called retention. And so the exploration of how, and I think Flash, me and you talked about this probably, it might have been when you were in my house last year. It was like, how do I make reserve, guard, and active more fluid? And say that, like, hey, I've retained this person, and then I want to make them a DO of an active squadron for 2 years. And you wonder how many people would say, sure, I'll move my family for 2 years to be a DO. And the answer is probably like there's a decent number of people that would do it.
It's not.
And so that's where I don't.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the
I've
thing to
seen-
me is like you
just gotta learn.
You
how to
guys
down
didn't
manage.
quit. You guys
Down
are still
manage.
in.
And Satan's still hacking the AOC mish. And
Right?
like,
Exactly.
Make it
and we're
easy
doing-
to serve.
and we're doing the stuff, and it's all
Yes.
retention.
Satan just said
Make
it
it
best.
easy.
Make it easy to serve.
Make
and
it
people
easy
will
for
keep
people
doing
to
it.
participate. Make it
Yep.
easy for people to participate. You're not going to be able to go toe to toe with the airlines or Google
Yep.
or Facebook or anybody else on salary or any of that stuff. I'm leaving a lot of money on the table for every month that I am here on active duty status. That is not a brag. That's just
Why
fact
do
of
you
life.
do it,
It
Satan?
felt
But I'm
kind of
still-
like
Hold
a
on,
brag.
Jeff. Why do you do it,
It felt
Satan?
kind
Why
of
do you
like
do it?
So I can, live in Europe and provide unique opportunities for my kids. But I still believe, deep down, I still believe in the magic that exists in flying, even though I'm not in a flying job, but in service. I believe in the mission. I believe in what we do in the grand scheme of things. I think what we do is important, even though the system, if we're to use that term, does not always make it conducive to promoting either the right people or the right mindset or mission set or whatever. Even though the Air Force is getting rid of the A-10, I still believe in the mission and in the unique opportunities of doing it. So everybody has their line. Everybody will get out at some point, but we have a unique situation here where there's to go to the fighter pilot crisis thing. Like there is a limited amount of talent out there that the airlines and the Air Force have to learn to share. And once you start thinking about it in terms of a sharing mindset rather than a hey, they're either with me or against me or with somebody else mindset, like that's the only way that you can be successful, I think, going forward as a large scale organization like the Air Force is. And once you start thinking like that, you can start making things easier for people to serve. You can then have more opportunities with the people that you have on hand because it is easy for them to serve, and they will be more conducive to, maybe take a month or two break from the airlines or whatever their other career happens to be. And the loss of money, they don't care about because it's easy. They want to go live in another country or they want to go do something different. I can't tell you the number of times I've been sitting in the place where I work and a random dude walks into the bar and is like, dude, what's up, man? How you doing? What's up? And they say hey to me, and I haven't seen them in 10, 15 years or whatever, but they're here because they wanted a little break from whatever they were doing, and now they're doing something else out here that matters to them. And it's good and it's important. And if you scale that to the whole Air Force, I think you can solve a lot of the issues that you've got where you've got 17% manning at the Pentagon or whatever other staff position you've got around. You just need to make it easy for people to do this and not have to fight, the bureaucracy just to get basic pay or reimbursement for stuff
on that one.
like I've had to deal with. Yeah. So that's my take on that
that's
whole
kind of the
thing.
thing, right? Is like there is no shortage of talent that will solve acute problems for you when asked. And it's like if you need somebody to come in and be a pinch hitter for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, make it easy, sub them in, sub them out, bring in the next guy.
Yep.
Yeah, that has some continuity issues and cons that come along with it, but it's better than not having that person at all. And kind of like to Duffle's point when we were in his house, that was when I wrote that stupid article where I was just like trying to figure out my own life. Whereas it's like he walked around and asked 20 pilots around the weapons school if they were getting out or staying in, and 4 said that they were staying in. Then I went and I told that to somebody who wears a bird on their shoulder at Nellis, and they're just like, yeah, we've only got 20% retention this year. And I was like, no, you don't. You have 100% retention this year, my friend. And it's like, because the other 16 were all staying in the Guard and Reserve. And so there you go. But all right, guys, we're going to close this out. Episode 1. Let's get the hell out of here. But if you guys don't mind, stick around. We got some stuff afterwards, maybe 10, 12 minutes. Duffle, I know you got something to get to on your beautiful Sunday, and you might have to like move and stuff.
We're showing our house to the next owners via FaceTime.
There you go. Ooh, housing market. That's something we could get into on a bro chat. That'll be great.
Let's talk about that.
But all right, fellas. Thanks to you guys. Thanks to Rain for letting us do this. This is the first solo podcast host for myself. So thank you guys for being a part of it. Appreciate it. Patreon subscribers, thank you very much. Like, subscribe, watch, comment, do all the things. Stick around for a little bit for Patreon or subscribers only. We're gonna have a little discussion afterwards. Our best hog story. So prime for that. Take a quick bows. It'll be only about 10, 12 minutes, but have a great day, everybody. Signing off. See ya.